Hi everybody, this is Steve. Welcome back to Scale Model Kit Review. In this video, I'll be featuring all 10 stages for Pack 2 of the Agora Models Terminator T-800. That's right, when you subscribe to this model from Agora Models, you'll receive 10 stages with each pack. So without further ado, let's look at Pack 2.
Phased plasma rifle in 40-watt range. Uzi 9mm. I'll be back.
Welcome back. Let's look at the magazine for Pack 2. Now remember, in this video I'll just be building stage 11. So I'm going to skip through the other stages and get into the articles that are contained within this magazine. So if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the Agora Models Hachette Partworks kit. I put a link below in the description. You can head over there and subscribe to this today. They have a fantastic customer service. They have live chat there if you have questions. Also, if you follow them on Facebook or Instagram, they're very responsive to your questions right away there. So as far as social media goes, they are there for you. So let's open this up, and the table of contents does tell us that with Pack 2 we receive 10 stages, stage 11 through stage 20. So like I said, we're going to look at stage 11 here first, and that looks like we're going to assemble in this issue the neck and jaw joints. So proceeding on here, we have a lot of steps involved here. First 3 pages give us steps all the way up to step 9. And then we have a total of 14 steps total. So let me skip through to the articles. So the first article we have here is an article about Iron Man. So they give us a little bit about the film itself and what's going on with that. We have 3 pages of that. And then the next article is a short story on robotic arms. A couple pages with that. So then of course on the very end here they have an exclusive offer available to the Terminator customers. Westinghouse M95A1 phased plasma rifle. And that's half scale also. So I look forward to receiving that. So let's get started on stage 11. I'll get the parts out and we will be right back. There is an addendum to the instructions, and what's cool about Agora Models is they actually came out with the additional instructions for building the fingers. They made some improvements on the fingers with these inserts here, and of course we will go ahead and put those in as we build the kit. So I think it's fantastic that they actually included that with this. And you can see that they give us about 4 steps in stage 14 for this. So I'll pull this out again when we get to stage 14 and we'll follow these instructions then. Here's the parts for stage 11, the neck and jaw joints. So I'll go ahead and pull these out and we'll get a closer look. Here's a close-up of the parts. We received the neck, 2 neck joints, and 2 brass bushings. We also received 2 different types of screws, 4 PB 2x6 screws, and 3 PM 2x10 millimeter screws. I'll be right back. Here's a close-up of those screws, and the 2x10 screws have very fine threads, whereas the 2x6 screws have coarse threads, and they're both button head style screws. Agora Models recommends you purchase your own screwdrivers, and I highly recommend these Wera screwdrivers. They are available at my Amazon store. There's 2 sizes you can buy. You can buy the PHO screwdriver, which is the one on top. That's a little bit larger. And then the PHOO screwdriver, that's a little bit smaller. So, like I said, go to my Amazon store and you can purchase them there. They're not very expensive, around $7 or $8 a piece. So get yourself a couple of them so you have a backup or a spare. In step 1 through 5, we're going to assemble the neck joint parts. We're going to take the neck section and we're going to put that aside until stage 13. So we'll simply match these sides together here. They are tabbed, three markings there, and they want us to use 3 2x6 screws, which are the PB screws. And I recommend you use a 00 screwdriver for this because it has a smaller shank to it. It will fit inside the hole there a little bit better. Get it pushed down in there and get it started. And it's tight. And we got one more on the bottom. It's right there. Keep pressure on it. There we go. That is it with that. Next, for steps 6 and 7, we need to get our lower jaw and head motor joint from stage 6 and 7, and we're going to install this just like that configuration. There's a couple of tabs on each side here, and it's simply just going to go down into the sockets, just like that. That's how that looks there. Next, we gather the lower jaw part from stage 5, and you'll note that there's an attachment point right there for a screw, and on the other side for a screw. So for step 9, we take and insert this just like that into that. It just slides up in there. It's kind of a tight fit. So once our jaw is in place, and we had to press it up in place here, very tight squeeze on both sides of the jaw joints, but they are lined up now. Our holes here are lined up. The next thing they want us to do is put the bushing in. So we put a bushing in on the side. This is going to take us all the way through step 14 where we complete this build. So once the bushing is in place, then we can put our screw in, and that is our PM screw 2x10mm, and that's going to feed in to some threads that are found in here. On the other side, it's already threaded, which makes it nice, and I want to screw it down too tight just till I have a little resistance, and that's it. Do the other side. We'll put the bushing in on the other side, just like that, and put our screw in on the other side. Goes right down in there. Perfect. And got freedom of movement there. You can see it looks good on this side. Looks good on the front, and looks good on the other side. Very smooth operation, very precise, looks great. Welcome back. Let's look at the instructions for stage 12. So for stage 12 we'll be assembling the right forearm, and here's all the parts that came with stage 12. And we've got a couple pages here with 9 steps total. Lots of parts and pieces here. Should be a lot of fun. And a total of 12 steps will be involved with this. So let me get the parts out, we'll get a close look, and then we'll start the assembly. Here's the parts for stage 12. Let me pull these out, and we will get a closer look at these. Here's a close-up of the parts for the right forearm. We received part A for the forearm, part B, and part C. We also received the forearm muscle springs and 2 sets of screws. We received KB screws, 2 by 4 millimeter, and they are very tiny screws with countersunk heads. And then we received larger screws here. These are 3 by 12 millimeter, and they have a button head type screw to them. The springs themselves are pretty cool here. Very springy. See that? I mean, they go all over the place. Pretty cool. So let's get started. So the next few steps does require super glue, and this is my super glue of choice for this. And we're simply going to lay down some super glue in these grooves here and put our springs in place and lock them down. To help the super glue out to dry a little faster, I'm going to use some accelerator, or what we call a kicker, at the end to lock everything in place. So I'm going to take and apply my super glue where it needs to go. And I am using my super glue looper tool. All this can be found on my Amazon store. Just make sure I have enough glue in here on everything. Move the glue out of the way. Take our springs, insert those where they need to be. Again, the other one, and that one, and that one. Everything's inserted here. Take my kicker and hit it. Next we take the forearm and the connector here with the springs, and we insert that to line up with the notches, just like that. I did put a little extra super glue inside of here to make it a little stronger. Now we're using those smaller screws, the countersunk screws, and that's simply going to lock this all down in place. And remember, all these parts are plastic except for the springs. That looks good. Next we take our forearm. That's it. This completed. And we're going to insert this other piece of the forearm on the end of it. We're going to use a 3x12 screw, which is the larger one we received with this pack. And the way it lines up is you have two sides to this arm here. You have this side that looks like that, has the indentation right there. And then the other side looks like that. So it's actually going to connect up with this up against the arm. Now what we need to do is line it up. We line it up with this groove to the groove that's found on there. On this side. There's only one groove. So it's basically going to go on just like that. You can see there's a screw hole here and a screw hole there. So I'm going to take my larger screw and I'm going to put it through the end piece first, and then I can line it up from there. Just like that. And get the thread started. These are all plastic. And you can see just gravity is keeping it locked in where it needs to be. Back it out a little bit. There we go. And push it forward. There we go. Perfect. And turn this around. We'll tighten this down on the other side here. And that's how it looks. And that completes stage 12. Had a lot of fun with this too. I've noticed with this build we use a lot of super glue, but that's fine. Welcome back. Let's look at the instructions for stage 13. So for stage 13 we assemble the neck and right finger component. Looks like we've got a lot of parts involved with that. And as I proceed here to the instructions themselves, we have 12 steps on 2 pages right here. And looks like we'll do the neck first for that stage, attach it to the head a little bit, and then we go to assembling the finger, and we have 15 total steps. So I'll get the parts and I'll be right back. Here's the parts for stage 13. And we get more pieces here for the neck. And of course our finger. So I'll take these out, we'll get a closer look, and we'll start the assembly. Here's a close-up of the parts. We received the right side of the neck and some plastic plates. The neck is also plastic, and pieces of the finger. They call it the right fourth finger. And of course the new parts that are included with this stage. And we received some PB 2x6mm screws. And we received this nice letter of addendum for stage 13, step 14. And lists the parts that are included here. Basically you're putting the plastic sleeves on these tabs here, and they give us step-by-step for that, so I'll take you through it and it shouldn't be a problem. Step 1, 2, and 3, we assemble the neck components together here, and you can see how this lines up with the slot on that piece of the neck right there. We'll put our 2x6 PB screw into this. In step 4, 5, and 6, we're going to assemble our jaw assembly we assembled from stage 11. And it's simply going to go into the neck here. Also, you have some alignment tabs there. You can see how they're positioned in this direction, and that's simply going to insert into that. It's going to insert just like that. Flip it over. Once again, putting our PB 2x6 screw into this. That's good there. Next, for steps 7, 8, and 9, we're going to put the other side of the neck on, and we want to make sure it lines up like it should. Snap, snap, snaps right down on it. We're going to put 2 more PB 2x6 screws into this. That's good there. One more on the bottom. And that's good there. Now we receive these plates, and they are going to get installed on the outside here. And looking at these plates a little closer, you can see they are actually labeled. They have an L or an R on the back side. We'll go ahead and cut these off. I have a really nice pair of Tamiya sprue cutters, and you can find that on my Amazon store. These allow you to get really close to it. You can just clean them off just a little bit here. And that's what's so nice about these. There's not much cleanup after you cut off the trees. So I'm going to go ahead and organize these by left and right. Put the right ones over here to the far end. Left ones over here. And we'll get our head and neck, and we'll insert the left side on this side and the right side on the other side. And they just line right up. No glue required. Probably wouldn't want to glue this in case you need to get access to the screws. And these are just snapping in. Makes it nice. Hides those holes for the screws. Very cool. Here's another view how that overall looks. I'll move that aside and we'll start on the finger. And here's all the parts for our finger. And remember, they gave us that addendum to add basically the plastic insert. And you can see how that works with that also. We're also going to need some super glue for this. And I will use my glue looper to apply the super glue here in a minute. And this inserts into that. This plastic insert goes over the outside of that. And we basically put these two together like this. We put this through the top first. And through the bottom. Just like that. And they want us to put some glue on there. I think I'm going to have to apply some glue to this also. So we'll do both. Some glue on this. And some glue right here. It only goes on one way. There we go. And then we put our cap in on the top. With the glue. Perfect. Take a little bit of accelerator and hit that with the accelerator. It does give us a capillary action, so it should get into there. And that'll make the super glue dry faster. And that completes stage 13. Welcome back. Let's look at the instructions for stage 14. And here's the parts breakdown for 14 over here on the right. Got a lot of parts here. Looks like we're going to be building the right lower arm and assembling the fourth right finger. Right there. Look at the instructions. And we have a total of 10 steps on 2 pages here. We're going to be utilizing that arm that we built previously and assembling the arm and whatnot along with the fingers and continuing on with the fingers there. Looking great so far, all the way up to step 13. So let me get the parts out, we'll get a closer look, and we'll start this stage. Here's the parts for stage 14. Lots of little parts bagged in here. Looks great. And let me pull these out, we'll get a closer look. Here's a close-up of all the parts. We received the lower arm tube A and 2 lower arm tube Bs. We also received our finger components. We received the longer portion here for the knuckle, and the 2 other shorter ones are for the finger joints. We also got the 2 by 16 millimeter screws. There's 4 of them there, and we have the caps. Let's go ahead and get started on this assembly. And don't forget our instructions addendum tell us about the new plastic sleeves that get installed on this, because they're not in the original instructions. So there's 3 steps provided for stage 14. Step 1 through 4, we're going to be assembling a couple of tube assemblies. We're going to start off to the right of the arm, there where the arm is screwed in to the end there. We're going to put the bushing in to the right, just like that. Then we're going to take our tube and mount it to that bushing, just like that. Then I'm going to take my screw and feed it through that and proceed to tighten it down. This screw is that real long 2x16mm screw. And if you can see that, until it's tight. There we go. And you can see there's some give back and forth with that. I'm going to check it one more time to make sure it's tight. It is a countersunk screw. It looks great. We're going to repeat that on the other side. Once again, we're going to put our bushing in on the other side here. Now this goes to, we'll be completing our step number 5 when we get this done. And we'll put our tube on that. Goes on there very, very simply. Feed my long screw into that, the 2x16mm screw, and screw it in. Perfect. So that's those 2 on there. Pretty cool. Okay. Now we got one more to do. We've got the shorter tube. It's going to go in on the end here, much like the other. We're going to put our bushing in on the end of it, just like that. Get my screw ready here. Insert the tube on the end of the bushing. Put my screw in. Two by 16 screw. And secure it down. And there it is. All 3 of them are in. You can see how they're all available here on the end cap. So that completes us all the way up to step 9. Now let's get to step 10, where we do the fingers. We get our finger from stage 13 that we just assembled previously. We line up the 2 fingers that came with this kit. We install the Teflon just like we did before, and it goes in on the bottom here. Slide that through. push it through. Just like that. That feeds through. Through that. You can take some pliers and just make sure everything is tight. Squeezed in there, just like that. Matter of fact, I would recommend the pliers. And just like we did before, we're going to use some super glue on this. And my glue looper. I'm going to tap some glue on the end here. Put this cap on. Perfect. Now we'll turn it on its side. Get our other portion of the finger lined up. Once again, the shorter connector with our Teflon tube going on it. It's ready to go. I'm going to feed this in from the top. Squeeze it down. And that's how that looks there. Feed this down on top of that. Take my pliers, squeeze it together just to make sure everything's tight. That looks great. Put some glue on it. Use my glue looper for this. Put it exactly where I want it. Put my cap on there. Perfect. Now we'll get the hand and put it on the hand. So we have our hand here. We're going to insert it right here for this finger. This is going to go just like the other ones. Just like that. So we'll get our connector ready. This is considered the knuckle one, which is the longer one. Put our Teflon sleeve on it. The Teflon sleeve is actually a little longer also. Perfect. Going to feed that through the hand first. Just like that. We'll get our finger lined up. And you want to make sure it goes in that direction, down. Take my pliers, squeeze everything together here. Holds pretty good when you do that. Take my super glue, tap it in the middle, in the center there. That's why I like this looper. It really gives you some precision. Take my cap, put it on top. There you have it. I'm going to take my super glue accelerator, or my kicker, and I'm going to hit all these parts that I just glued. Capillary will get them to work. And we got one more finger to do here. That looks great. I'll be right back. And that completes stage 14. Wow, we did a lot here. It was a lot of fun getting the rest of this arm assembled, and relatively easy in that aspect, and assembling another finger for the hand. So stay tuned for stage 15 coming up very shortly. Welcome back. Let's look at the instructions for stage 15. So for stage 15, we assemble part of the left head and the fifth finger of the right hand, which will be the last finger finally. So here's all the parts, and it's a good idea to take a really good inventory of everything that you've received in this pack, because you never know, a part might be missing. And what I have noticed, they always give us a spare screw for all the screws that we receive. So that's pretty cool. Looking at the instructions, we're going to work on the head first, and then after we're done with that, we're going to work on that last finger. And of course, install the finger onto the hand. So let me get the parts out, we'll get a close look, and then we'll get started. Here's the parts for stage 15. And if you'll give me a second, I'll pull these out and we will get a closer look. Here's a close-up of the parts for stage 15, where we assemble part of the left head and the fifth finger on the right hand. So we received the left head components, inner and outer, and we received the last components for the finger on the right hand. And we also received 3 2x4 millimeter screws, and these are PM screws. So let's get started. Step 1 and 2, we assemble pieces of the left head, and we'll have to turn this around to do it. Turn it around like that. We'll put these 2 larger tabs on top just to give us a reference point. We're going to be installing 2 2x4 millimeter screws, the PM screws. And we'll take this and you can see we have the detail on this that needs to face the outside, which would be the other direction. And so it needs to basically go down just like that on top of it. And we put our 2 screws in. One here, one there. It's already threaded, don't need any oil or anything to help us out here. That's good. And the last one. Nice and tight. Very good. And that's how it looks. Let's get started on that last finger. And to help us along with that last finger, I'm going to be using my super glue of choice and also my glue looper. Of course, you can find these on my Amazon store. So I'll put some on a tray. These little solo cup trays are real handy for that. Some people use them for, I don't know, they're called like jello shots or something like that. I have no idea. Something about a jello shot, but that's what they're used for also. So this is our fingertip. They want us to glue this in place here. It's kind of an oval shape on the end. Can you see that? So that's going to have to match up with the fingertip. And I'm just going to apply my super glue across that. The other side, it's not completely round, it's oval. And we'll match that up. Boom. There we go. That's in place. That was step 3 and 4. Next we have 2 more pieces of the finger. We're going to take the long one, push that aside for now because we're going to use the shorter one in this case. And we're going to turn this over. It's going to line up like that. We're going to use the smaller joint. Put our Teflon cover on there. So it's going to go down on the fingertip first. I'm going to squeeze that on there. Squeeze it through the joint of the other finger. Take my pliers, just kind of squeeze everything together. Make it tight. Apply some super glue to the middle of that. Use my glue looper for that. And put my cap on. Cap looks like that. Feeds into the top of that. And it's secure. Turn this around and we'll line up the next one with the longer piece of the finger. Once again we'll use the shorter joint with the Teflon bushing. Put the bushing on here. This is one of the improvements that Agora made from the original Hachette release, and it works great. And we'll feed that through this knuckle first here. And if you have a hard time with it, just take your pliers and now to get it started a little bit. And you can push down on your bench to get it through, or you can continue to use your pliers like I am here. And that pushed it through just fine. We'll push it through the finger. Squeeze it down with the pliers until there's no gaps. Take my super glue, apply it with the looper, and put my cap on. Looks great right there. And the last little bit, the last joint, which feeds the knuckle. Once again, a shorter joint, Teflon bushing. This time we feed it into the finger side first. Then the finger joint goes on next. Take my pliers, tighten everything down. Looks good. Some more super glue. And we'll put our cap on. Perfect. To help the super glue dry, I'm going to use my super glue accelerator or my kicker and just spray. Capillary action will get it in there and help everything tighten down. Okay. Now we're going to install this on the hand next. So we'll get our hand from stage 8, and with our rest of our fingers we have the last finger to do here on the right, and it's simply going to mount up just as before. It's going to go in from underneath. Let me get a closer view for you. Just like that. And we have the longer joint and Teflon bushing. So I'll go ahead and put that together. Just like that. It's going to go in through the hand first. So I'm going to lay it down on the bench, put it through the hand, press it through. Take my pliers, still try to push it through. There we go. Then we take our finger, put that on top, take my pliers to that again, squeeze it until there's no space. Looks great. Take my super glue and I'm going to apply it to the middle. Take my cap and put my cap on. Perfect. To accelerate the super glue, use my kicker and we'll let that dry a bit. I'll be right back. I'm going to take my looper and clean it off with a lighter. Just going to burn off the glue. Ready to use another day. And that completes stage 15. Wow, got a lot done. We actually have one full hand complete right now. I think that's awesome. Welcome back. Let's look at the instructions for stage 16. So for stage 16 we begin the assembly of the first lower arm. Got a few parts here involved with that, a few different types of screws. And the first 2 pages filled with 7 steps for this process. And a couple more steps after that. So we have a total of 9 steps for this stage. So let me get the parts out and I'll be right back. Here are the parts for stage 16. Feels very light, so they're probably all pretty much plastic in here. But I'll go ahead and pull these out and we will get a closer look. Here's a close-up of the parts. We received lower arm A, lower arm notched ring, and 3 lower arm Bs. These are all plastic. This is a rubber material. We received 3 lower arm rubber washers, 2 locking washers, 2 3x12 millimeter screws, and 4 2x6 millimeter screws. PM screw right here and PB screw right there. So for our next part of this assembly, which is step 5, 6, and 7, we're going to put all these together here. First thing they want us to do is just insert this arm pieces here together, and you can kind of see they kind of ratchet around each other. You can kind of hear it. And then our arm assembly, there is a groove you need to line up here, and that's right there with the groove that's inside there. So I turn this over and line it up and throw it in there. Now we take our PM 3x12 millimeter screw, we put our lock washer on the end of it, just like that, and we're going to feed this into the end here. You can might be able to see it in there a little bit. Turn it so the camera can see it better. And we're going to feed that through. Just like that. And we're going to screw it in tightly. And will give us kind of a ratcheting motion. I could probably go a little tighter with it. There we go, and that's a little bit better. And you can kind of see where that screw is right there. Okay. Let's put that aside. Next we take the 3 lower arms and we attach the rubber washers and screws to them on the very end. So we'll take one at a time. And we'll take our 3 rubber washers here, 3 of our screws, the 2x6 millimeter PB screws, and these will actually go in on the end. We pick it up with a tweezer, see if there's a difference between one side or the other, and there really isn't a side. You can see there's kind of a groove there. Kind of see the groove. We'll get a screw here. We'll put it through one of the rubber grommets first, and then we'll screw it in on the end here. And there's one. And here they are, all screwed together. And you can see they're going to offer some friction and some actuator type assembly there. So they tell us not to over tighten your screws on the end here. These black rubber washers should be able to rotate. And with step 9, they tell us to insert them into these tubes, just like that, like that, and like that. There we go. And that completes stage 16. We had a lot of fun assembling this stage. Stay tuned for stage 17. Welcome back. Let's look at the instructions for stage 17. So here's the parts list for stage 17. We're going to be fitting the sides of the head and the top of the head. Let's look at the instructions themselves. We have a total of 6 steps with this, and they do give us an expert tip with this. They tell us it's easier to position a screw if you have a magnetic screwdriver to pick up the screws, which those Wera screwdrivers that I've been using for the build, these are magnetic and they're fantastic. You can actually get these on my Amazon store. Fantastic. So let me get the parts out and I will be right back. Here's the parts for stage 17. I'll take these out, we'll get a closer look. And definitely has some weight to it, so this is obviously metal. I'll be right back. This is the top of the head right here, and we also received 3 ball joint assemblies. Those are plastic. The head is metal, obviously. 2 different types of screws here. We received the 2x4mm screws, those are PMs, and we received 2x6mm screws, and those are KB screws. So if I take the head here and we'll get a closer look at it, definitely solid metal here, a good chunk of metal, and you can see the detail here. So let's get started with this build. Looking forward to it. Step 1 and 2, we fit the right side head assembly. And we'll take the top of the head, we'll turn it over, and you have 2 installation lugs here. Just want to do a test fit to make sure they fit correctly. Obviously this goes to the other side, just like that. Okay. They want us to put in 2 PM screws, 2x4mm PM screws. There's one. I'm going to leave it a little loose. Make sure everything lines up. There we go. And then we can go ahead and tighten both sides down. And perfect there. And they want us to do the same thing on the other side. So it's nice with a magnetized screwdriver. You can pick up your screws with it. Get it ready to go. Same thing, we're going to line up this side right here. The first one started. And it's working perfect so far. A little loose. And we got one more to do. Become ambidextrous using both hands for this build. And we'll tighten these down now. And there we go. Perfect. I'll be right back. With steps 5 and 6, we install these ball joints on the wrist of the hand. And they're going to go in these 3 points right here. And they should just go right in. We'll do one at a time. So we'll fit that in. And we put in KB screws, 2 by 6 millimeter screw. Once you have it in place, it shouldn't twist or anything. Let me turn it so you can see what I'm doing on the camera here. So hold it in place up against it. These are KB screws, or recessed screws. And there we go with that. Next one. That's in place there. Now what you can also do, because these are kind of hard to get in, and it's something I've thought about. So if you're having problems getting screws in the plastic ones, not necessarily metal, let me show you a little trick here. So to help you along to get the screws to go in a little bit easier in the plastic parts, you don't want to use oil for that because it could degrade the plastic. So the best thing to do is get yourself some dish soap, okay, and go ahead and get these little disposable micro applicators. You can find those on my Amazon store. So I'm just going to put a little soap on the applicator, and I'm going to apply it to where I want to put the screw into. Okay, then I'll line that up, and it should offer some lubrication to that screw and make it easier for you to screw it in. Perfect. I'm going to do the same thing. Put a little dish soap on this next one. Got one more to do here. Looks like it's on the very end. So we'll put that in place and get the screw started. Yeah. And just trying to tighten it down just a little more. Perfect. There's those ball joints. They look great. I'll be right back. And that completes stage 17. That was a lot of fun and a real blast to build. Definitely a little bit of a challenge putting those ball joints in on the end of the hand. But besides that, I had a lot of fun with this. Welcome back. Let's look at the instructions for stage 18. And for stage 18, we assemble the eye motor support. So we have 4 steps on the first page there. And to complete this, we have a total of 11 steps. So pretty cool here. We're actually getting some of the motor components for the face. So I'll get these parts out. We'll get a closer look, and I'll be right back. Here's the parts, and you can see we've got the little clear blue motor in there, wiring, and some screws. So I will go ahead and pull these out and we'll get a closer look. Here is a close-up of the parts. Very cool. This can be one of my favorite things to do with this build, is doing the electronics. So here we received the motor for the eyes, and not a very big motor at all. It's pretty cool. Pretty nice. And we received the eye support, 2 types of screws. We have the PB 1.7 by 4 millimeter screws and the 2 by 4 millimeter screws. So the first time we've seen these black screws with Agora on this build. So remember, those are 1.7 by 4 millimeter. I'll be right back. So we dig out the parts that we received from stage 1 and also from stage 3. And we're going to take this headpiece with the eyes, we're going to turn it around. And remember this, we had this packed away for a little bit, right? This is going to have to go on top of those eye sockets. You can see there's some holes there. So we insert one there and go to the other side and insert it on that one also. There we go. It's on both. See that? Okay. Next we'll install the eye motor support, and just like it shows with those arms facing outward, we're going to put that in just like that. Okay. This is where we use those 1.7 by 4 millimeter screws to hold it down. Now we'll tighten both down now. Perfect. And that's how that should look. Now we take our motor and we want to have the wiring to this direction here. It's on the same side where your output shaft is for the motor. Let me move this wiring out of the way so you can kind of see what I'm doing here. Simply going to fit down on top and feed into that shaft assembly right there. Okay. And we're going to fit those 1.7 millimeter screws into this. So fit that again, just like that. And can you kind of see that? Kind of going a little loose there. There we go. Getting it started. Just going to leave it a little loose. Give you a little bit of a closer view for the other side there. And okay, it's feeding it really well. Tight on that side. Let's tighten the other side down. Perfect. Now our motor is fitted like it should be. And now our motor is fitted just like it should be. Looks great so far. Next we're going to fit the upper jaw to the lower jaw, and that's going to be 8, 9, 10, 11 steps. So you can see basically we'll mount to these 3 points right here. And we can see the attachment points right there. That's going to go right on top like that. Just lower the jaw so I can have access to it. I can even have access to the underside. 3 PB 2x4mm screws. I'm going to put the screw in first. See if I can get it to thread in. It took. Let's do 2 more. And 1 more. I know it's hard for you to see. I technically can't see it myself, but I can feel it. There's 1. 2. And 3. And it's mounted. Looks very good. I think it's very cool. And you can see where they went into, just right there on the bottom. And that's all we do for stage 18. That was a lot of fun. And now it really is starting to look like an exoskeleton, the Terminator head there. Very cool. Our eye motor is installed at this point. So everything looks fantastic so far. Welcome back. Let's look at stage 19, kit instructions. And for stage 19, we assembled the head motor this time. It was fun doing the eye motor last issue, so this one's really cool too. There's a special note here on the right side. It said, in some steps we have used tweezers to grip the parts. This is done for clarity in the photographs. It may not be necessary to use tweezers. Okay, so when you see that, it's just so they can take a better photograph for us. So we have 3 steps on the first page, and then we have all the way up to 9 steps for this. So let me get the parts out, get a close look, and then we'll get started. Here are the parts, and I will take these out. We'll get a closer look. Well protected there. I'll be right back. Here's a close-up of the parts. We received the connecting gear, as they call it here, the gear assembly housing, the motor itself, and the other side of the gear assembly housing. We received 6 PB screws, 2x6mm, and 3 PWB 2x6x5mm screws. And here's a close-up of the motor. Show you the gears on this side. It's a step motor, as they call it. And we actually have 4 pins going to it, four wires. So step 1, we pretty much just put the 2 housings together, and you can see we have our motor there. There's a alignment tab, same on the other side, and we just put that in just like that. And we're going to use our PWB 2x6x5 screws, and we just put it in 2 places. So we will screw that in. There you go. Looks good there. And look like that's tight right there. Looks good. Next we take our motor, we mount it to the housing. Now with the housing we want to have this notch here on top with the wirings running down below. So it's going to go just like that. This time we use the PWB 2x6mm screws for this. You can see it has a wider head on it. We will put that in. Got one more on the other side. And all done. See how our motor sits in there in the housing. Looks great. Alright, so before we continue on for step 7, we take our gear housing, and they want to make sure that you check the alignment of the peg on the gear assembly. It should be positioned as shown so that the wedge on the rotating disc butts up against the wedge of the housing. So we'll take and rotate this. I have to rotate all the way around the other way because they actually show it like that. Okay, you kind of see that. So this wedge right here is up against the housing. I'll back it off some so you can see it. We have this wedge here and the wedge there. It needs to be up against it. Okay, so we got that lined up. And the screws that went in here previously were the PB 2x6 screws. So the instructions had that wrong. So there's a little correction with the instructions. Now, let's take our motor and our gear assembly and we line it up just like such, because we have 2 openings on the bottom, 1 on the side, and that's going to go just like that up against it. And we're going to put 3 of those PB 2x6 screws in. So I get the first one started here. Trying to be ambidextrous. I'm left-handed. I'm using my right hand. Getting quite good at it, actually. We'll get that down in. I won't tighten it all the way, just so we have a little bit of movement on the part. Makes it easier. Get the next one in. And the next one. It's around the side there. Or is it? Yeah. Okay, there it goes. And it's going. Tighten that down. Let me tighten the other two real quick. I'll be right back. And that completes stage 19. We've done a lot so far in this pack. Had a lot of fun installing the motor here. Just the screw callouts were a little bit flaky on the instructions. No big deal though. You can figure it out as you go along. I'm looking forward to the final stage, stage 20 of pack 2, which will be coming up shortly. Welcome back. Let's look at the final stage, stage 20 for pack 2. So for stage 20, we assemble and mount the head motor support. So we got a lot of support panels here, a few parts involved, 3 steps on the right side there. We have an expert tip here on the right. It says self-tapping screws are a tight fit. It sometimes helps to repeatedly screw forward half turns, followed by a quarter turn backwards until secure. So in this case we may have to put a little lubricant on there to help it along. Then we have a total of 12 steps here. A lot going on with the head and the motor. So we'd be putting on all the support brackets. So with that, I will be right back with the parts. We'll get a close look at them. Then we'll start this assembly. Here's the parts. And you can see it has a little weight to it. So we definitely have some metal parts in here. Some brackets and screws. I will go ahead and take these out and we'll get a closer look. I will be right back. Here's a close-up of the parts. Now both the motor supports here are metal and then the motor casing are plastic. We received PB 2x6mm screws and PM 2x4mm screws. I'll be right back. Now for step 1, they want us to locate where we're going to mount the motor support bracket right here. It has 3 holes on the bottom of it. They line up with the 3 holes here on the back of the head. Now these screws we're going to use are self-tapping screws, so that means they're not pre-threaded. So we'll go ahead and throw some Vaseline in those holes to lubricate them a bit. Make it a lot easier for me. And we'll line up the motor mount. You can see the tab, it's going to go facing forward. So we're going to insert that down, just like that. And we will put our first screw in. There's one. That's 2. And they're actually going in. And they're actually going in pretty easy. There's a 3rd one. And locked in. There we go. You can see they're in there now. Alright. Alright, the next thing we do is we put the motor into the cradle. We want to make sure that the the drive tab sticking out there on the side. You can see that my finger there goes into that slot. And let me make sure my wiring is moved out of the way too here. Okay, so we want to make sure that that goes into that slot. Just like that. And then we can mount the motor down in there. There we go. Then we put our cover down on top of it. Just like that. And we install 2 PB screws to hold it in. 2x6 screws, the longer ones. Got one started. Flip it over. Get the other one started. So we're putting in the motor mount support and just being very careful here, meticulous on getting these screws in. I'm going to get it tight. Do the other side here. Check the other side one more time. And there we go. Motor support is fully installed now. Next we install the motor support brackets. So the one we're going to be dealing with is the one with the screw attachment on near the top of it here. So this one here first. And this one is going to mount to the left side of his head and on the back side here also. Just like that. You guys can see that. And we mount this with 2 PM 2x4mm screws. We take the other mount bracket, and you notice it had the screw hole near the bottom. We will mount that on the other side. Make sure it lines up on the back. It does. So once we have it lined up with the front screw in, just like that. And we'll put the back screw in, line it up. There it goes. Tighten it down. We'll tighten the front up. And that looks good there. We have all our support brackets in. I'll be right back. And that completes stage 20 and finishes up with pack 2. that was a lot of fun, and we made a lot of progress on this build. I look forward to Pack 3 to arriving, and where we'll get 10 more stages. So with that, if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, and please subscribe to my channel. Also, head over to Agora Models and subscribe to this build today. You won't regret it. This is fantastic. I'm really enjoying this. It's a lot of fun. With that, happy modeling everybody, and take care.